So, Matt Walsh calls out the black community.
Oh my God!
So,
They're not gonna like that one.
yeah, they're not gonna like this. So,
I got a question.
and that question is, well, what is the greatest problem in the black community? Because that's what Matt Walsh was attempting to answer in his video. Now, Matt Walsh has, people will call him racist a lot of times. I don't necessarily think he's racist, but he did have a very insensitive tweet last year. What are your quick thoughts on the biggest problem in the black community?
Not my biggest. The biggest problem I think the black community has right now is that I guess it's gonna sound cliche, but we stopped making God the center, and it shows. Because there was a time where getting up on Sundays and in your Sunday best with your family and going to church, that was the thing that black people did. I mean, church was at the cornerstone of our community. And, that's what kept us together for so many years, even in the midst of all the adversity or slavery or civil rights movements that were going on at the time. Those are the things that held us together, because we had God first, and then we had family to hold as that foundation for us and future generations. But now we're convinced we don't need God. We're convinced we don't need family. We're convinced we don't even really need each other. But at the same time, we want to have a community. And so it's a weird divide going on right now. We basically don't know who we are or where we're going, and we don't have any set goals. And again, we don't have that foundation of God anymore.
Okay, Kenya?
Yeah, I feel like mine stems from what Miracle is saying, just because my thing was going to be, I feel like the greatest problem in the black community is like being over-sexualized and doing things that are over-sexual. Like we see all the time in like rap videos, in our pop culture, like it's just a lot sexually, and that stems from not putting God first and falling away from that and not putting family first. Because if we put family first and we put not finding husbands, but being wives in order for husbands to find us, we wouldn't be twerking on top of a car. We would be learning how to become a wife, or how to be a wife, and how to be a mom, and building skills that are actually valuable to our community. So that would be mine.
Amen.
I like that. Yeah. Amen to that. So that leads us to our quality sip before we get into what Matt Walsh has to say. Black people as a whole lack common values and vision. So essentially what you two said in a nutshell. But there are communities within the blacks that move effectively. So a lot of times when we say black community, we're only referring to, the lower socioeconomic people that live in this urban areas, and which are the majority of black people as a whole. But there are plenty of black communities that, my family is involved in, our families are involved in, that are actually, coming together with other black people, not just, black people who have made it out of the hood that only associate with white people, but that are, communing with other black people and being productive in society, starting businesses, doing business with other black people. And so when you say black community, I don't really like that term, because we don't say white community and refer that blanket, phrase to all whites. We understand that, white people have, they have rich people, they have what they call the white trash, they have the middle class, white people. And and the same with any other, culture, right? But when it comes to black people, it's like, no, we refer to you as this monolithic thing, which I think is wrong. But, Matt Walsh does make some good points about, what is kind of going on in these urban populations as it pertains to the black community there. So let's take a look.
Why are so many black kids in D.C. killing and robbing and committing all manner of other violent crimes? Well, before we talk about social media or music videos or even the criminal justice system, we have to talk about the fact that almost all those kids are growing up in homes without fathers. Nearly 80% of black babies in D.C. are born to unwed mothers. which is 10% higher than the already sky-high unwed birth rate for black people nationwide, 80%, which leaves, and you've heard this figure before, but think about what it means for a second. We usually don't trace this all the way down. So that leaves 20% of black kids with a father in the home when they're born. But keep in mind that the black community also has by far the highest divorce rate. Okay? So,
Hold up.
So this is kind of crazy, right? Because if you don't start out with a father in the home, it looks like our screens went like super.
Like 10.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't know
I
what
saw
happened.
that too.
But oh well, maybe it's like night mode or something. But anyway, if you don't start out with a father in the house, and inevitably your father's kind of removed from the house because of divorce, which actually happened to me. So I started out with strong nuclear family, and then middle school divorce, and like my father was still in my life, which was great. But the core of the nuclear family was broken, essentially. So you two, shout out to y'all's parents. Y'all did it. Black love prevailed. Love it, love it, love it. But that's just not happening in the vast majority of black households. And so it's leading him to say that this is probably the greatest problem in the black community. But let's hear him out for what he has to say.
a huge portion of the black kids lucky enough to be born with a father in the home will not have a father in the home by the time they reach middle school.
Oh, man.
So how many black kids in D.C. or any other
That's
major
true.
city
That's what
have
happened
a
to me. I just
father
said.
in the home
Wow.
for their entire childhood? Well, it's hard to say exactly. But that number is way less than 20%. That much we can say for sure. The black child in a stable home with married parents who stay married is an anomaly. It is a rare exception to the rule. And that's the problem. Every other problem is rooted in that one problem. You could and probably should ignore every other factor and just focus on this one for now. Because it's like the whole story. Why do black kids end up committing so much crime? Why do they end up dead or in jail or in gangs or all of the above? How do you explain the black poverty rate, black unemployment, so on and so on? Well, the black nuclear family basically doesn't exist.
Yeah. So that's his angle. And that's his take. Very strong take, especially coming from a guy who's not black, which would probably get a lot of pushback. But what he's saying
It is true.
isn't necessarily wrong. And so, but I do think that it goes a little deeper than just, father's not in the household, right? Because even if the father is in the household, it's like, what is the quality of that household? Because there's black, families that are together that are dysfunctional, but they're just together.
Yeah.
I mean, and that goes for, any family, white, Asian, or anything other, it's what is the quality of that family? And that stems from what that family values and what their, like their foundation is built upon. And so, Miracle, you mentioned, like everything needs to be centered on the word, right? And so, where are your values coming from? And black people, especially in America, when we had stronger family units, right? It was built on going to church and built on these family values that were great. Now, that was in a time where gender roles were very strictly enforced and women didn't have as much autonomy. I'll use that word. But even with that evolving doesn't mean that we had to, shred our households so that women could get their autonomy. We can still, function within gender roles with women being able to, go to work, with them able to, run their own business, kind of be, independent in their right, but still able to fulfill, some of these traditional, gender roles, or not even traditional, like biblical gender roles that, keep a family together, because it's going to take both the man and the woman staying together and fostering the, rearing of children for us to, change the trajectory of, I guess, blacks as a whole. But I do think, like we were saying earlier, that there are certain sections and populations and communities of black people that are doing that effectively. And they're not, in, I guess, more of the statistical side of what Matt Walsh is talking about. But we just need more people to, rise to the occasion, and more people to jump on board to those values, to say, hey, no, family is important. Doing business with each other is very important, so that we can grow socioeconomically, or just doing smart business in general, whether it's with each other, whether it's with other races, but at least supporting each other in that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think the families that are doing it, I feel like they tend to seclude themselves more. I don't know. Like with my family, for example, like obviously my parents like stay together. They're very loving, like, and they're probably out of all my family members are the most like unified. So, but with that, I also think that they tend to not be in community as much. They're like together all the time, and they're not necessarily going out into the community and like being like, hey, you can have a relationship like this too, or you should, maybe try this way of living, kind of thing. And I think that's something we as a whole could be better at. Like for us, like we're doing that now, and as we grow older and become more secure in our marriages and things like that, we should definitely like be in the community and like show like it's possible. Like we've heard people say like, oh, I didn't even know people were getting married still anymore, or
Right. Yeah.
or
insane.
Like black people.
yeah,
by the way,
yeah. Or they'd be like, oh, you guys are such a stable couple, and it's like,
It's like you don't know any other stable couples besides us. You know what I mean?
That is a problem.
And it's kind of crazy because we know several stable couples that are black. Well, we associate with a lot of different couples, but we know several that are black in particular that are like, oh no, like they're gonna get married and they're gonna be strong essentially forever. I mean, now things may come up in life, but as far as like what they value and what they're showing right now, it's like, no, this is a wrap. And that's who we have chosen to associate with, like you and Alan. We have we just went to
Daniel
their
and
wedding,
Chelsea.
Daniel and Chelsea, like, and I mean, there's other Deshaun and Magda.
Yeah.
So there's several people that we're constantly, in community with in some sense, that we're like, no, we're rooting for you, and like this is
It's
who
possible.
it's possible.
it can be real.
Right. And so
Exactly.
I think it's going to take all of us, raising our kids together. I mean,
Yes.
not necessarily being on the same block, but maybe being on the same block, because
That's
maybe,
what I thought.
because maybe that's, but maybe,
Compound them.
because if you think about it, that's probably the problem, because the black people that are on the same block are the people that are not very well off right now. And the people that overcome those circumstances end up not being on the same block
Yeah, and that's fun.
or on a block with other black people
Yeah.
that they can be. But that's why I
That's
like where my dad lives.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But that's what I was talking about. Like, I feel like the black families that are like stable tend to be secluded from people that look like them,
Right.
or look like us.
Yeah.
But yeah, your dad's
Yeah,
neighborhood is
in
like,
Eagles Landing, around the McDonough Stockbridge area in Georgia, there's a great community of black people
Yeah.
that all live in that area. They're all well off, and they do business together. They go to different country clubs, different events, and it's beautiful.
That's
It's
awesome.
beautiful. And you may not agree with John over here or Michael down the road, but at least you come together and you're like, oh yeah, that's John, that's him, and you're still building a community of people that show you what is possible. And that's a good example for the kids as they grow up, so that they're not necessarily growing up and listening to rap music and then going outside and saying, oh no, what the rap song said is the only reality that I'll ever know. Like, because for us, we can listen to rap music and be like, oh,
that's a little wild.
That's wild,
Exactly.
and that's a song, but that's not
Right. Yeah, it's
not
necessarily our
real.
reality
Yeah.
at
It's
all.
not what I aspire to.
Right.
Right. But for a lot of kids that grow up in those circumstances, if they don't know any better,
Yeah.
or they're only shown like, oh, like this is you're literally trapped in the trap, then unfortunately that is the situation or I guess the cycle that will continue to manifest itself.
Yeah.
That we do have a Bible verse that I want to show, and it is Timothy. I'm mad that I can't make that bigger. Oh well. So it is Timothy, 1 Timothy 5, verse 8, and it says, whoever does not provide for relatives and especially for family members has denied, has denied the faith. What are you doing?
I was saying, like, you can zoom in with the letters, the A's.
Oh, thanks. Oh, what do you know? Thank you. And whoever does not provide for relatives and especially for family members has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. So
That's something.
yeah, so if you're not providing for, your household and making sure that they're well off, then you're essentially denying the faith, because again, Christianity is all about the relationship first with God, and then making sure that because your relationship with God is good, that the self is strong, so that you can help your family and thus your community or the church around you. And so if we can get back to, that simple mentality as, Black people, or as just people in general, then I think the world will be better off, but especially, the Black community, even though I don't really like to use that term in a monolithic way. But yeah, that's just what we think. Again, our quality sip is Black people as a whole lack common values and vision, but there are communities within the Blacks that move effectively.
Why did you choose that?
The Blacks.
Why did you choose that?
What do you mean?
The Blacks.
The Blacks.
The Blacks, because we are the Blacks.
Oh, gosh.
I guess we can say that.
Can we?
I don't know.
I love saying
Do we
the
want
Blacks.
someone else to say
I
that?
say the Blacks sometimes. Well, I say it when I'm trying to be funny.
I know. I mean, I was kind of
Okay,
being tongue in cheek there. But yeah, I mean, that's just what we think. We would like to know what you think about this issue. Should Matt Walsh even be talking about the Black community? But if we aren't talking about it, who's going to talk about it? You know what I mean? So let us know your thoughts. We'll be right back with another quality segment. If you're watching the replay of this, make sure to check out this video next.
Fight without rhythm, fight without rhythm, fight without rhythm.
I messed that up.